All right, so it has been less than 24 hours since the SEC surrenders the case against Brad Garlinghouse, Chris Larson, the executives at Ripple. And now we have a discussion here that happened today, this Friday, with the AMMs, including David Schwartz and a couple other lead developers from Ripple, hosted by our good friend Vet, who is working at XRP Cafe, one of the NFT marketplaces on the XRP ledger. So we have big victories on the legal battlefield, and we got big proposals, amendments coming to the XRP ledger that is going to allow for utility to flourish on this ledger over the coming decade. And we get a little clip from Brad Garlinghouse talking about how much in digital assets is set to get tokenized and how much is going to be custodied between now and 2030. It's more than just a couple trillion. I'll give you a little sneak peek at that. Now, market moving here today. This is Friday. We're recording this session. I'm about 1 o'clock here on the West Coast, my time. So the markets are about to be closing here in just a little bit. But let's take a look at how we finished off the market for this week. Another volatile week, absolutely. DXY basically unchanged here today. The stocks back down, though. S&P down. NASDAQ, Dow, all down. NVIDIA down another 1.7%. NVIDIA really just getting crushed this week after Biden bans the chip sales to China. Apple down another 1.5%. Tesla smacked, even though apparently Tesla is reporting that they shot an entire drum mag from a Tommy gun at their Cybertruck, and not one bullet penetrated the Cybertruck. So they are releasing bulletproof Cybertrucks here soon, I guess, but that did not stop the price from going down another 3.69% for Tesla. But our favorites pump. Gold, 1991, at one point trading over 2,000 per ounce today. Gotta love it. Absolutely. 23.5 right now for silver, up over 2%. We were up over 3% at one time. 23,525. So 23.5 for your silver. And oil basically remained unchanged. Basically at $89 for crude here in the US benchmark. Worldwide Brent crude oil benchmark up to 92.24. So markets were really volatile this week, and we see here that we finished off strong with Bitcoin still hanging out here above 29,000, pumped up here today above 30,000. Once again, I'm about to show you the Bitcoin chart. Back above 1,600 for Ethereum and XRP. Victory pump up to 53 cents last night, back down to 52, and we're watching it closely. Let's take a look here, and this is our Bitcoin chart on the daily. Unfortunately, I believe this is a classic head and shoulders pattern that we're seeing play out here. Little pump, little excitement, little narrative, Bitcoin spot ETF fake news, sending it back up to 30K. We hang out here, hanging out really well at this level at the 29,000 mark, back up to 30K today. Big pump up to 30,250. And we've rolled back over here to 29.5. Watching this one closely. XRP victory pump yesterday. One of the most rigged charts in all of markets, remember. July 13th ruling, Judge Torres, XRP in and of itself is not a security, crash all the exchanges up to about $1 for XRP, back down to 42 cents during the summer, chopping sideways at 50 cents. Victory pump takes us to 53, and we have really not got much since. Okay, we're watching this one closely. XRP following along with Bitcoin, but we love to see a price breakout for gold, silver, oil, and our XRP and Bitcoin as well. I don't hold any Bitcoin, but nonetheless, I respect it. And it's making a move. I think that it's a fake bull trap rally. I think that the SEC is going to delay the ETFs again. And upon that news, we're going to see a major sell-off, and or when we eventually do get the ETF approval, watch for that to be a buy the rumor, sell the news event. After that announcement is made, we get a little pump up. Watch for the folks who are front running that move to dump on the Bitcoin bros. Watch out for that one closely. XRP, we're going to be watching, but I'm not really expecting it to break out here right now. Middle of a bear market recession. It's a problem. The liquidity's dried up in this space. As much as I would love to say that XRP has begun the next bull run, Bitcoin has begun the next bull run, I don't believe that to be the case. I believe this is a bull trap rally for both. And be very careful here and consider having some cash on the sidelines if you want to pick up these assets a little bit cheaper. Nonetheless, the narrative here is pushing people into a flight to quality, in the words of Larry Fink, and that's why we see gold, that's why we see oil pumping, silver, and XRP as well. Now let's get right into the update. John Deaton, just wanted to share this comment. The SEC didn't dismiss because it's the right thing to do. The enforcement lawyers recommended dismissal because their bullying and intimidation tactics backfired. Simply put, they were going to be outclassed and embarrassed in the courtroom, just like the Hinman email hearing, where later the judge called them hypocrites and said they lacked faithful allegiance to the law. Also, Hinman was going to be called as a witness by Brad Garlinghouse's lawyers, no doubt. Remember, Judge Torres ruled the Hinman emails were most relevant for impeachment purposes on cross-examination. SEC lawyers, especially the lead lawyer in this case, only like it when trials are totally stacked against the defendant, with the chances of a defense victory slim to none. In the end, they did what most bullies do when they step up to fight back: they back down. This was easy to see coming. So, the SEC, the bullies that they are, didn't expect to run into some fighters in Brad Garlinghouse, Chris Larson, and Ripple, and they have dismissed the charges, not because it was the right thing to do, but it's because they were just going to get completely exposed. Now, as you look at the future here of where this goes, how many trillions are coming into this space, how many trillions are coming to the XRP ledger, be careful with headlines like this. So Flip the Chain, much respect for sharing this clip here. But he says, Brad Garlinghouse expects $10 trillion to come on XRPL from the custody digital asset market. If you listen to this clip, I'm going to play it real quick. He's talking about 10 trillion assets getting tokenized, custodied. He's talking about 10 trillion of digital assets being custodied by 2030, not necessarily saying that they're going to be on the XRPL, but of course, XRPL is ready to get a good chunk of that, absolutely. But we just got to be clear, and I like to provide clarification on that. I'm not here, I don't want to provide just fake, false hopium that we can't back up. But like I said, when you look at the conservative white papers estimates on where this is going, 10 trillion by 2030 is very conservative. Let's take a listen here on Brad Garlinghouse. This was an interview that he just did with Medico.
The macro environment around custody digital assets is expected to be close to $10 trillion by the year 2030. And inevitably, people are going to need a place to store those assets, and safe, secure, and they're going to need to be able to transfer them as well, having good on and off ramps. Even a tokenization engine, some of the work Ripple is doing around central bank digital currencies or CBDCs. So we think there's a lot of pieces that come together, and we already had, and I remember when you and I first spoke, I remember being on a call with one of the largest top 10 banks in the world, and a bank Ripple was already working with, and they were asking us about, could we help them with their custody? This is prior to the Medico acquisition, and we weren't in a position to do that. And so when we think about that synergy, the ability to say to that existing Ripple customer, hey, here's a best in class, going head to head, time and time again, and winning on the custody level, to be able to bring that product to them, I think is a great opportunity for the two companies together. So,
Absolutely. Top 10 banks, no problem. Already working with them. Now we have custody solutions. Sounds good. Now let's bring in the final ingredient to the XRPO. So as I tied this space, we're going to have an AMM update here. Great space hosted by Vet earlier today with David Schwartz. And I wanted to play this clip right here. A lot of concerns brought up, and David and the team did a fantastic job answering them. The question here that they're discussing is essentially, the XRPL not being able to handle the load that could potentially be put on it by the AMMs. And David does an excellent job of answering this, along with the concerns about front running, which is a valid concern, right? All these, concerns are valid, but I'm going to let David kind of explain why the XRPL already has this covered, the protection mechanisms against bad actors coming to the XRPL. Take a listen in on this.
So the servers that are participating in the consensus process is working. And what's going to start happening is that if you start to have too many transactions getting in, so first of all, it's proactive. It doesn't wait for the system to be in trouble. So essentially what it does is, let's say it says, in the last 100 ledgers, we've gotten 40 transactions in each ledger. It doesn't set a hard limit But what it says is if you want to get more than 40, if you want to get a 41st transaction, and you have to pay a little bit more. And if you want to get a 45th transaction, you have to pay a lot more. And if you want to get a 50th transaction, you have to pay an absurd amount. And so it regulates the number of transactions that goes in each ledger. And so long as the system is operating reliably, that number will go up. So if the previous ledger, there were, let's say, 45 transactions with no problem, it will allow a couple more in the next and a couple more in the next until consensus starts to get slow. If consensus starts to get slow or unreliable, it will then reduce, it doesn't really reduce the number of transactions it allows, but it requires a higher fee. And if people are willing to pay higher fees, then the fee will escalate. And eventually you'll reach the point where whatever is flooding the ledger, let's just say it's some jerk who's just flooding it with completely meaningless, he's moving XRP back and forth between two accounts just to be a jerk. How much is he willing to pay for those transactions? Someone once analogized it to someone trying to snuff out your campfire with $100 bills. Like, if they're doing it, you're not super, like, they're going to stop doing it real quick. And then the attacker will have to continue to spend at a very, very high rate to maintain their attack. And eventually they'll either run out of money, or they'll sort of, they're using XRP to do it. So they're going to have to buy that XRP at some point in order to sustain their attack. And so that's the mechanism that protects the ledger right now. And the ledger doesn't know if a transaction is good, bad. An XRP transfer could be somebody buying a house, or it could be some jerk just moving XRP between two accounts they control. The ledger doesn't know. So it can't figure out whether a transaction is good or bad. It just limits the number of transactions by balancing the fees to protect itself from like a technical collapse. And those mitigations obviously are in place today, or anyone who wanted to could just destabilize the ledger with just a small amount of money.
So essentially, with a small amount of money, anybody could, make an effort to destabilize the ledger right now without the AMM, right? But this is already built into the ledger. Those fees are going to escalate if someone's trying to really load it up. And eventually, they're not going to be willing to pay that price to jam up the ledger. They really, made it, they protected the ledger against malicious actors like this, right? And, David started out the session by describing it as a volatility harvester. That's what this is. It's very, very simple. But what makes this one different is this is a layer 1 AMM compared to all of the other AMMs on the Ethereum ERC20 tokens. Those are all layer 2s. So Curve DAO, you can name off hundreds, right? There's been all of these different DeFi plays on ERC20 tokens. The AMM that they've created is on the layer 2. Where this is going to be on the layer 1, which the layer 1 XRPL already got all the protections really in place, right? The mechanisms in place that he just described. And then he was talking about how front running, you won't be able to front run as much on the XRPL because transactions happen in 3 to 5 seconds. So you still be able to front run. Absolutely. There's always going to be front running on any network. But when you compare that with Bitcoin, Ethereum, and these other networks where, the transaction settlement time can be minutes, hours, days, then you can do significant front running and arbitrage, right? What this does is it yields that arbitrage. The yield is generated from that arbitrage, and it squeezes the margin on that arbitrage until essentially what I believe we're going to be building out here is the best liquidity, the tightest pairs between all currencies that get added to the AMM liquidity pool. David Schwartz adds this after the session about the only reason to oppose the AMM amendment is if you don't want the XRPL to grow. That would be rational if you thought the XRPL was currently too broken and couldn't handle it. I don't believe either of those things. So he doesn't believe that it is too broken and that it can't handle it. If David believes that, if some of the smart developers, he had a few other ladies up there from Ripple, key developers and engineers from the team on stage with him, and they all kind of sounded the same thing in consensus that, we're about as ready as we can get before it's time to set it to go live. And they were explaining, half the code there is actually based on testing. Over half the code within the AMM amendment is for testing, and only like 45% of it is the actual AMM, which, believe me, this is way past me too, right? I need this brought down to the most simple level. And today's conversation really did that. It was reaffirming for me. I understand that there's still some developers, still some, many validators that are voting no on this, some that are being very vocal. The reasoning behind it, not incredibly strong. There's definitely some infighting happening between the developers, a little bit of developer drama. Oh, I'm not going to vote for your amendment because you're not voting for mine. Or, oh, I'm mad at Ripple because they didn't give me money from their grant. And I'm mad because, I'm mad. It's a bear market recession and everybody's mad. This is utility that we need on the XRPL. And I got a chance to ask Ved a question after in the follow-up space, the after-party space, about how much of the other ledgers can we use to learn from. But that's where Death Ranger had actually answered me, and he said, well, all these other ledgers don't have the AMM on their L1, right? They have these AMMs on the L2, so that's the difference here. So although we can kind of learn from those AMMs and all the DeFi that, 90% of it went bust because it was just decentralized Ponzi schemes, we can learn from that somewhat. But this is going to be really, really tight. There's not going to be as much money to be made, but that's sustainable, right? This is something that's not going to just, be a fly-by-night operation where everybody piles into liquidity pools, crashes them, piles into a liquidity pool, crashes it, moves on to the next one. This is going to be building out liquidity pairs, liquidity pools that are going to find the best liquidity in the world, in my opinion. I think will be found here in these pairs between XRP and USDC, XRP and USDT, and anyone who wants to issue other currencies onto the ledger can do so. And so then we can start to move some of those ODL flows where Ripple's been settling on centralized exchanges with some of their ODL partners, or basically exclusively with all of their on-demand liquidity partners. Those flows and volumes can move to the AMM, which is on the XRPL DEX. That makes it so that we are actually tapping into the same liquidity pool as Ripple and their on-demand liquidity partners, and we start to see a little bit of price movement. Okay, price movement doesn't come really from ODL right now as it stands because these are closed off liquidity pools with centralized exchanges that Ripple's using. But Ripple has shared this blog post. RippleX has enabled its validator to vote for the XLS 30 AMM amendment. We are confident that AMM integration will enhance the utility of the XRPL and that network performance will remain resilient. Our latest analysis explains in further detail. Absolutely love to see the transparency and the effort here made by Ripple. Moonkey shares this comment, co-founder of XRP Cafe. In the next 2 weeks, we will find out where the UNL stands in regards to the AMM and other amendments. If you're voting no, the community expects you to make your case against the AMM public. If you're unable to disclose your opposition, you shouldn't be on the UNL. And even David himself in the space today said that we should be going through kind of a more active process of weeding out the validators on the UNL list that aren't really about it, to make it simple for everyone to understand, right? These are developers or validators on the ledger that they're just not active. They're not out here, kind of explaining their positions on the ledger. They're not really that visible. They're not vocal. And then they're always late on voting. Right. And so they're slowing things up. We would get a faster amendment process if we had more validators that were actively, working to grow the XRPL. So that's a good point. I think that there's a lot of questions and a lot of concerns, even by myself included. There's a clear divide in the XRPL developer validator community and amongst the validators themselves. And that's why we only have 5 votes is the current tally right now on this amendment. So when we take a look here, this is the XRP Scan website, and we can go look at the amendment voting, and you can see right here for the AMM, we have 5 yes votes. We need to achieve 28 to get that 80% consensus. Now, there are 5 amendments in proposal right now. Reduced offers, the clawback amendment, which I'm going to do a separate video on the clawback. That is for issued assets, by the way, not for XRP. There's no way to claw back XRP, and there won't be after this. This clawback is only for issued assets, right? NFT token remint and XRP fees, a couple other amendments that are underway, but the AMM currently only has 5 validators voting yes on it. Now you can go to this list, and the top 35 here are the UNL list, the DUNL list, I should say. Okay. And so I believe it is, right, it's these two right here, students.cs.ucla.ac.uk. And then we have BitTrue actually voted yes on the AMM as well. They voted yes on all of these 5 amendments. Okay. But you can go through and you can see who has voted on what. And right now we can see the other 3 that have voted yes are, where did it go? Right here. It's Ripple's Validator, AMM, absolutely. And they voted in favor of the other ones too. Okay, they just haven't voted in favor of the clawback yet. And then Kaczynski, okay, is the other one that has voted yes. And then we also have this one, JohnNilson.no. So these are the 5 validators so far, and we're tracking this in real time. This is the beautiful thing about the open source, permissionless, free to use XRP ledger, right? Is that anybody can come on in here and be a validator. And what the DUNL list is about finding a trusted group of validators that are responsible. And it's not that everybody needs to agree. It's about having that common respect. Everyone has ideas. Everyone is free to propose amendments. And we have a 80% consensus that must be reached to implement an amendment. So it's not a 51% majority. It's an 80% consensus, much more stringent and for good reason. But like I said, if we had more active validators, these could actually be going faster. So the XLS 20 update for NFTs took 2 years to pass. We're just 1 month into the AMM now being available for basically proposal and voting, live. We're only a month into this journey. So this could take a lot longer. We'll see right now a lot of validators speaking out. A lot of people, speaking out against this amendment. A lot of people pissed off at Ripple. That's fine. Share your thoughts. Come on my show. Come share your thoughts, right? We want to have this conversation. We want to make sure that the ledger, is continuing to grow, remains sustainable, and remains flawless for moving value. That's the first objective. Next, we add these additional amendments. And now, by the way, the SEC has surrendered. The SEC has lost. They are 0 for 3. And now we get to watch Ripple settle up the case. We get to be set free. And even if the SEC tries to appeal, it would just be another embarrassment for them, and it would be another historical loss for the SEC as well. So I'm not even expecting them to appeal. I think that they are just going to try to settle this thing up, try to shut us up, and get on out of here. But nonetheless, the show goes on. Another big move for price action, another big week for price action. We're going to continue to watch that one. If you guys are looking to load up on precious metals, digital assets, get some wallets, we have it all over at my website, ZachRector.com. Your precious metals, your exchanges, your wallets. Get tapped in with our community. We're going to be having our Discord weekly call every Saturday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. A great opportunity to get in touch with me, ask your questions, comments, come hang out, have your morning coffee every Saturday with us. We would love to have you. With that being said, on the way out, if we haven't already, let's do something with that thumbs up, maybe a thumbs down if you're, you don't want the AMM. If you don't want to get more utility on the XRPL, that's fine too. Appreciate all of you guys for tuning in, and I will keep you guys updated on the rest of the content. Make sure we're subscribed, hit that notification bell, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. God bless.